Thanks indeed for staying with us this Easter Monday morning on the program This Morning on ITV. Indeed, we will be talking aviation because many persons are still flying and the airports are busy and bubbling. And that sector is one that really drives the economy of many countries. If you doubt me, then go check some very big airport like Heathrow. Go check the airport in Singapore, one small nation here, but a very bubbling, mighty airport here. Then when you go to South Africa, you check the Oliver Tambo Airport in Johannesburg here, and you check the Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. You can go on and on and on and on. Several other ones I have not visited anyway. Well, it's time for us to talk aviation here and look at the issue of air traveling. We got one man who always come around, very passionate about what he's doing, because the Holy Books will tell you in the Ecclesiastics that whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might, for there is no work in the grave, where we are all going to here. So he is doing this with all his might and all his conviction and all his passion, and putting in everything to ensure that as air travelers, we will not just go there, sit down, put the earpiece and enjoy the music here, but we know what is happening around our environment. And that's the man whose picture you see on the screen there, Mr. Godwin N. Ike, Aviation Freaks. The telephone number is there, the email address, in case you want to reach him there. Now you got a blog, you can follow through the YouTube pages there. You can tweet as well, follow him, you can retweet most of the tweet that he is sending, and together we can keep the world fully informed. Mr. Godwin Ike is with me in the studio this Easter Monday morning. A very wonderful morning, sir.
Happy Easter.
Thank you very much, sir. I thought you would have traveled.
Not when I have this program waiting for me today.
Okay,
on Easter Sunday.
But some people in the village will not be happy that Uncle did not come. They will not be happy that Uncle did not come.
Definitely, but they do understand that this job has to be done. They understand it, and maybe in another day or two, I will be visiting, and I will. I'll make up.
But if you're going, please just get the bags of rice. Everything before you fly by road, you can send everything by road. Then when you arrive, before you go, you will have arrived there. So when you go, they come to your compound as a politician, and you start to share. That's what makes you a big man in the village.
My dear, please, happy Easter to you all, and welcome to the program. Just stand by.
Okay, it's awesome here. We're looking at the crash of that Boeing 737 MAX. Everyone is talking about it here, and we are still talking about it here. So much revelation. The lives of persons who are dead have gone, but yet we got some legal battles still ongoing. Many persons suing Boeing, some people suing Ethiopian Air, all waiting to claim, make some claims, and some are just bitter here. It cannot just happen here. It ought to have been corrected before. And one to where are we starting from today?
Oh, we are doing part 3 because there's no end to this horrible thing that happened, and I am determined that the world must hear all the truth.
Okay.
Whatever they put underneath the table, I'm going to find it and bring it out, and then beginning to continue to share it until we ensure that these planes will be safe when they come back up in the air, and ensure that this never happens again.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, after part 3 next week, we're going to do perhaps part 4, and the final part, during which I'm going to give my verdict from what I know now and what I have extrapolated as what will happen. I will give my verdict. So my dear viewers, stand by. Make sure you don't miss next week, next Monday. God keeping us all alive and healthy. You will hear my verdict, and it's my hope that Boeing as well will hear my verdict. That somebody in Nigeria, the only one in the world doing what we're doing here, said so, and so it shall be. And so let's.
Okay, let's hit the ground. Let's hit the sky flying. If he's in road, we'll hit the ground running. Let's hit the sky flying. It's aviation here. Can change our language.
Part 1.
Part 1. We got a clip there.
Clip 1. Let's go straight to clip 1 and get it.
That clip 1, immediate effect of grounding.
Yes, immediate effect of grounding. When the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) announced its grounding order, about 30 737 MAX aircraft were airborne in the U.S. airspace. The planes were permitted to continue to their destinations, where they were then grounded. In other parts of the world, especially in Europe,
flights were diverted when grounding orders were issued. Some of such flights include a Norwegian 737 MAX airline heading to Israel, turned around and returned to Stockholm. 2 Turkish 737 MAX airlines, one heading to Gatwick Airport in South London, and the other heading to Birmingham, turned around and returned to Turkey. Okay. Those were the effects, some of the effects, the immediate effects of the grounding orders. Can we move quickly to clip 2?
Clip 2, let's go to clip 2 very quickly. Clip 2, yes, the initial reaction from Boeing.
Shortly after the second crash involving Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, a Boeing 737 MAX 8, Boeing's first public statement went thus: Boeing is deeply saddened to learn of the passing of the passengers and crew on Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, a 737 MAX 8 airplane. We extend our heartfelt sympathies to the families and loved ones of the passengers and crew on board and stand by to support the Ethiopian Airlines team. A Boeing technical team will be traveling to the crash site to provide technical assistance under the direction of the Ethiopian Accident Investigation Bureau and the United States National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. Excuse me. In further response to the grounding of the 737 MAX by non-U.S. countries and airlines, Boeing stated, we have engaged our customers and regulators on concerns they may have and would refer you to them to discuss their operations and decisions. Safety is our #1 priority. We are taking every measure to fully understand all aspects of this accident, working closely with the investigating team and all regulatory authorities involved, and a few other blah, blah, blah that went on. But, I decided to ignore those. But let's go to clip 3.
Clip 3, if we can get clip 3 there. That's clip 3 here. The initial reaction from Boeing continues. We saw that's the plane on the ground.
So we are continuing from where we stopped in clip 2. Clip 2, yeah. So now, clip 3. Boeing stated further, the investigation is in its early stages, but at this point, based on the information available, we do not have any basis to issue new guidance to operators. Did you hear that? Yeah. Yeah, I think that again, because it's important to know this for what will be unveiling, in the near future. Boeing stated further, I want to repeat it.
Okay.
The investigation is in its early stages, but at this point, based on the information available, we do not have any basis to issue new guidance to operators. Okay. In light of the crashes, Boeing postponed the public rollout ceremony for the first completed Boeing 777X, okay, which had been scheduled for March 13, 2019. Find photo of Boeing 777X9 below. Now take a look at that, awesome double-aisle, long-range Boeing 777. You will see that Boeing, in spite of building the MAX series, is also doing some great job on their 777, very successful, airplane. As a matter of fact, I've flown this a couple of times, and I tell you, it's quite comfortable and nice. But when X gets attached
That's true.
to the brand name, you begin to wonder if they have some software they are not telling us about in the airplane. I remember President Trump said planes must be left for pilots to fly, not the MIT system operators. because a whole lot of computers are being loaded right now that is getting really quite dangerous. So let's move to clip 4. Clip 4. And,
clip 4, clip 4,
here we go.
The initial reaction from Boeing continues again, clip 4.
Yes. March 11, 2019, Boeing announced that it had been working on upgrades to the MCAS flight control software, cockpit displays, operation manuals, and crew training. Boeing made it clear the upgrades were partly in response to the Lion Air crash. You remember the Lion Air crash
Yes.
in Indonesia? So as Boeing was discussing the upgrades, he wasn't actually referring to what we had on our hands, which was the Ethiopian crash.
All right.
Which obviously, had the same pattern as the one that took place in Indonesia. But let's get on. But not linked to the Ethiopia. I take that again for better understanding. March 11, 2019, Boeing announced that it had been working on upgrades to the MCAS flight control software, cockpit displays, operation manuals, and crew training. Boeing made it clear the upgrades were partly in response to the Lion Air crash, but not linked to the Ethiopian Airlines crash. FAA, that is the Federal,
Aviation Authority.
That's right, Aviation Administration. Administration.
Okay.
That's United States agency, United States of America. FAA Airworthiness Directive will make its deployment mandatory.
Okay.
That's Boeing speaking here. The FAA will make this new software that they're dealing with mandatory in the coming weeks. Boeing further issued a statement saying that pilots can always use manual trim control to override the MCAS.
Okay.
But investigations shown that pilots of the Ethiopian Air did everything that they were directed.
The plane was still nosediving.
The plane was still heading down. And so this idea of using the trim control to override the MCAS appears to be having issue as well, because investigation has shown that those pilots did everything in the books, everything Boeing directed to stop the plane misbehaving. But it went on misbehaving until he hit the train and slaughtered all the passengers and crew. Let's move on with our clip 4, the paragraph 2 of clip 4. Based on FAA grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft on March 13, 2019, Boeing released another statement. Boeing continues to have full confidence in the safety of the 737 MAX. This was when Boeing was still grandstanding. However, after consulting with the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, that is FAA, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and Aviation Authority and its customers around the world, Boeing has determined, out of abundance of caution, and in order to reassure the flying public of the aircraft's safety, to recommend to the FAA to temporary suspension of operations of the entire global fleet of 371 MAX
that's
aircraft.
very huge.
Yes,
very huge.
They had order for over 5,000, but as at the time these accidents were taking place, they had supplied 371, globally. There's quite a lot of them out there. On March 14, 2019, Boeing confirmed continued production of 737 MAX series aircraft, but halting deliveries to customers. So what we have here on our hands, Boeing is still producing MAX, 737. Boeing 737 MAX, the 8, the 9s, and the rest of them. But They are not delivering to customers because, according to them, they're still dealing with the upgrades to the MCAS, which they hope will be resolved and make the plane safe. But let me use these few moments that we still have, time to show our viewers the real issue.
Okay, we even need this.
That's right. The real issue remains that, remember I had told you earlier that this whole thing is all about the business rat race between Airbus and Boeing. Airbus came up with their A320 Neo, in which they installed these LEAP engines, huge engines with high bypass ratio, which ensures that you save as much as 14 to 15% of aviation fuel. You consume, per your traveling time and traveling distance. That meant, or let's say that means, savings for the airliners.
That's true.
And more profit.
That is what we do here. When we buy Japanese car, we tell everyone that.
That's why the consumption of fuel
is very low.
It's very low.
Sometimes the price of those cars will almost be times 2 of the other one.
And so, in order for Boeing to still be in the race for, the best airplane manufacturers and suppliers, they had to match the Airbus A320 Neo, by installing the same LEAP engine. Remember, I taught you about LEAP?
Engine, yes.
Yes, the leading edge aviation propulsion engines. That's the meaning of LEAP, LEAP, leading edge aviation propulsion engines. So those LEAP engines are big and really powerful, and because of their high bypass ratio, I'm not going to, really tell you the technicality of the meaning of, but it helps reduce consumption of aviation fuel, and so
we're producing a very nice speed and pressure
and power. All right, but here is the trick. Naturally.
Okay.
I just hope our viewers will be seeing what I'm trying to demonstrate to them. Let's do it on the table.
Okay,
because naturally, when the Neo, I hope my viewers are seeing it. Naturally, the Neo sits higher on the ground. Naturally, the Airbus Neo sits higher on the ground than the Boeing.
Higher in what sense?
In the height, of the ground.
Okay.
If you put Airbus Neo here and it's standing, and you put opposite it the
Boeing,
the normal Boeing 737 that we have always known, that is awesome and very reliable with its different type of engine, stands a little below.
Yeah. Okay. Boeing will be below.
Boeing will be below. Okay. Why Airbus Neo is higher up there.
Good.
If you understand that is so, Boeing hugs the normal 737 hugs the ground. Okay. It's lower. Yeah. Why?
As low as a cargo plane anyway.
Passengers. Okay. Passenger plane is, when both of them are standing face to face, you find out this one is lower than the Airbus. So here is a challenge.
Okay.
Now, Airbus was able to install the LEAP engine in the normal way without the risk of the engine touching the ground because of its elevation with the design of the undercarriages.
Okay.
The clearance from the ground, because of the clearance from the ground, those engines were possible to be installed in the normal way.
Good.
Now, for Boeing to install the same engine in its ground-hogging 737, he needed to do it in such a way that this engine will be a little higher.
Okay.
So it had to now install its own engine slightly above the wing and protruding out. And that came with a problem.
What problem is that?
Each time you put power to get yourself off the ground,
Yes.
this positioning of the engine creates a pitching moment.
Okay.
Its moment is a kind of force,
Okay.
that drives you up in the, the nose higher than necessary. Because in normal takeoff, when you take off nicely, you reduce your pitch in order to get airspeed.
Okay.
But a situation where you're taking off and your pitch is going up in the air, you risk a stall because you're going to lose airspeed. And once you lose airspeed to the minimum that keeps this plane in the sky,
you fall off the sky.
It stalls and stops flying,
Fall off.
and it begins to drop vertically off the sky. So in order to avoid that risk of stalling, Boeing, knowing fully well that its engine installation came with a problem of higher pitching moment because of the installation they did in order to have the engine clear off the ground. Remember the ground hogging height of the aviation?
Very clear.
Right. So this engine exists in Airbus Neo, but it doesn't give that high pitching moment, and therefore does not require the MCAS to correct it.
But the pilot can correct without the MCAS. The pilot should be able to correct it.
Yes, but it will overburden pilots. Have a lot to do in the cockpit.
But at least
so a situation where
for takeoff, you must put everything in place.
Yeah, but it's not only in takeoff. Remember, even when you're flying normally, there are times that you reduce power a little bit, and there are times depending on the wind situation. For instance, if you are taking off with a tailwind pushing you forward, you may get to a point, if the direction you are heading is still maintaining a tailwind, you may get to a point where you pull back a little bit on your throttle, because the wind is helping you make your speed. You understand? So even by pulling back, you save fuel consumption. You still maintain your speed that you need for that trip, that you're doing. But what if you now have to change direction because of where you are traveling to, and your flight path that you have determined with your flight plan, the flight plan you made. All right, and then you come to a point now where you now have to bank and change direction, and then you come up against a headwind. Can you see that?
Correct.
So the effect of that headwind is to slow this plane down. And in that process, naturally, the pilot will do what? Push forward on his throttle to increase the power and still sustain the speed he needs. Can you see how it works?
Very correct.
Now, if you do that for the Boeing Max, what do you find?
That's true.
A pitching moment, a high pitching moment. So, is that what the pilot will be busy doing? Always pushing on his control column to reduce.
Some guys drive automatic cars, so
now,
they push constantly.
Now, I am believing that my viewers have gotten the graphic information of why we have this issue with the Max 737. So it's my belief and hope that by the time we do our conclusion of this awesome topic next week, I'll give my verdict and take personal responsibility for my verdict of the only way this airplane 737 can be trusted once again as the old one. You remember the old 737 is a workhorse and known to be very successful and very safe one of those you could describe as very faithful machines. Correct. Until Boeing came up with this. I like to call it a trial and error business. So my hope is that Boeing will think it through.
And think it deeply.
And very deeply, and do the needful to ensure that they deliver to the world.
But for now, while we await your verdict for next week Monday,
yes.
The question we'll be asking is, can these anchors be corrected?
You see, my dear,
can it just be disconnected?
This is a beautiful question that shows me you are really following.
Can it just be disconnected?
Yes, it can be disconnected, but the point is,
or deactivated.
It can be deactivated, but the point is, if you deactivate it, you run a risk of stalling without realizing it. Remember, because of lack of relativity in the skies, that's when the plane is tearing away at 950 kilometers an hour. Okay. You don't even know it's moving.
That's true.
Imagine you're traveling in your car at 160 kilometers an hour, 160 kilometers an hour. How do you feel? You really feel that here is death ahead of me.
We'll be telling you very clearly that
you are committing suicide.
Nearer my God to thee, nearer to thee.
That's correct. You feel the pressure. Yeah. You see things passing you by, and you know that you're really tearing away at high speed. Now imagine 9 times or 8 times that speed of 160 kilometers an hour, and yet you feel nothing. It's about lack of relativity. You are not relating the movement of the plane to any object around you. You are just seeing that, just the cloud and the sky.
Empty sky.
That's correct. And that's why you do not know that the plane you are sitting in is tearing away at 950 kilometers an hour. Now, what's the effect? The effect is that even when pilots may be sitting and having fun, and they are in autopilot and moving, when the plane tips up above what it should and begin to lose speed, they may not notice it when it matters. Because sitting there, you're not feeling that you're fast or you're slow. I don't know if you get the point I'm making, because of lack of relativity. And so the risk is that by the time pilots realize that they're having an issue, that's when the stick shakers and all the parameters of or rather the characteristics, not parameters, but the characteristics of stalling, begins to show up. And very often, more often than not, when those stalling characteristics begin to show up, it's getting too late. And as soon as you rapidly lose your speed to below the minimum, you stall, and you begin to fall off the sky. And may God help you, when that vertical drop begins, no matter how much power you put, your plane stops flying. The only chance, and that is very slim, is if you have height advantage and you are able to push on your control column to take a dive. And remember, usually these passengers' airplanes are loaded with passengers and a lot of luggage. So the likelihood of you taking a dive, gaining speed and leveling off and then flying once again is slim, because the weight of the airplane may be too heavy to sustain that dive and rising again. So more often than not, when you start and begin to drop vertically off the sky, you're doomed.
Okay, we'll wait for the judgment day, the verdict day by next week, Monday. We'll be seeing how it all goes, but somehow that's what happens when you fly, and it's good for you to be configured knowledgeably to your own environment, so that you don't just enter the plane and the next thing you call somebody, we are coming, you don't know what's happening around you, and somehow you just need to be guided in everything. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, my brother.
So by next week, we would be coming back on Monday to actually be looking at the Boeing 737 MAX and seeing how we can wrap things up. But those of you who are following, please be knowledgeable. Sometimes when you want to talk to the pilots, you just talk and somebody asks you, hey guy, you got knowledge in the brain. And we do just that. Okay, let's allow God is that God can go out and enjoy the Galilee day, the Galilee Monday day after Easter. He wants to go and catch some fun. But I would have preferred him to be in the village, share some rice, share some palm oil. The big uncle is
definitely doing that.
The big uncle is around. Everyone will be saying the big uncle. But somehow we need him here so much. Okay.